Welcome to Detonation Point. I'm your host, Matt O'Neill. I was with the U.S. Secret Service for 25 years and retired as the Deputy Special Agent in charge of the Cyber Operations part of the Criminal Investigative Division. In Detonation Point, I'm going inside the fight against cybercrime, hearing directly from defenders in government, infrastructure, and enterprise who are racing to stay ahead, because cybercrime isn't slowing down, and neither can we. Welcome to Detonation Point, presented by Elastio. Welcome back to Detonation Point, presented by Elastio. This week, our guest is Zack Martin. Zack, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Of course, Matt. Always happy to talk to you.
So every week, we kind of come up with a theme of what we want to talk about. And this week, I was thinking about sales and BD and GovCon world. And I'm like, I got to get my man Zack on, because you and I talk about it every single week. First, can you kind of give the listeners a little background about you?
Yeah. So my storyline and trajectory into sales was a little unique. However, I think it's pertinent because at any point you become a salesperson and then you could dedicate yourself to it. And those versions of the salesperson kind of evolve with who you are and what your personality is. So coming out of school, I was a Ernst & Young auditor. I did forensic accounting and then a lot of audit. Turns out my personality does not fit audit very well, so I fell out of that pretty quickly. I went into investment banking and got a job over at a small broker dealer to get my Series 7 and 63, and then folded into Bear Stearns, which I now get to age myself about how old I am. And so I was there for the collapse of Bear Stearns. I tell people all the time I thought it was the greatest company. I still think it's one of the greatest companies that's ever existed. I love it. Those are the two teddy bears right here.
Yeah.
Our Bears Cares teddy bears. And then, but I learned a ton from how to operate, how to move quickly, and then how to make really good, fast gut decisions from that group of people. And some of my best friends still are from that very short time there. When it collapsed, I went to a smaller broker dealer, William Blair, out of Chicago, and worked with two great partners out here on the San Francisco coast. And we grew the office from a small 4 people to well over 90. Now, that said, it was a lot of the investment banking, but I was doing institutional sales and I got to watch that growth happen. And the coolest part about that job, I never thought of it as a pure sales job, but I actually think it was the most important one. I was matching up what I thought were stock ideas for fund investors. And what I was really doing is selling our analysts, the person that were making those stock calls, to those investors. And we'll dig into that a little bit more, because sales at the end of the day is a people business. It's very much people to people. And as we see AI move forward, I'm curious what parts of that people to people connection it's going to affect. But then from there, I met my wife. I had 2 kids. My schedule to travel all over the place wasn't working well, so I jumped over to Salesforce. It's where I met so many of my mentors in this process. One that I just talked to earlier today is fantastic. His name's Dario Lono. Just really kind of cemented a lot of the ways I think of sales process. And Salesforce is it's an MBA on how to do sales. It was a great opportunity, great experience. And then from there, I was covering a lot of fintechs and crypto companies. And I came across Jonathan Levin. Him and I sat down, had a conversation, and I had an opportunity to run the West Coast. And so jumped over there. I think employee number 150, 160, and then rode that rocket ship over to the 1,000. So many great memories there, so many great people. Fell in love with the space. But ultimately, I left. I went to MoonPay for a little bit, and then ended up at CipherOwl. When I was over at Chainalysis, I had the privilege of covering Coinbase. We were selling in our products, and the team there internally was just building things better, faster, cheaper. And I kept being amazed at what they could do. So when those 2 gentlemen that were in charge of all on-chain data activity decided to spin out and go after the space, I was really happy to jump on board with them. And so that's where I stand now.
Wow. So going back to Bear Stearns real quick, just for a 2-minute history lesson. I was in Connecticut from starting my career, knew a lot of Bear Stearns people. And then it was a very quick sort of end to them. At least it felt like it externally. Can you just give a quick sort of like what happened?
I was young and junior, so my point of view might be a little bit bizarre, but in my opinion, I completely agree. I think that we had our head of equities come out and give us this call of like how comfortable he was, that we were going to be fine. We were going to be 300. We were going to battle it down, get ready for the shots, and then come out of it stronger. And I truly believed everyone thought that. I really think that Bear Stearns was a run on the bank. It's a sad situation. I think there was some different things that happened that made us unfortunately collapse, but it was within a week. Earlier that week, we watched the stock fall. It kind of rebounded a little bit, and all of us knew the bad news was coming, but that we were going to try to muscle through it. And then just like everybody else, I'll remember it forever, getting to work as a Thursday, I think, and then seeing that $2 number, they sold it for $2 a share, which just sounded completely unrealistic. And then watching the panic happen right afterwards. It was wild, but I learned more from that experience. and the grit of it, and then just the professionals of every man and woman on the floor of just what it means to like get punched in the face and know that you're going to rebound back and keep fighting.
And then your evolution of sales, everywhere you were, it was doing something that might not be traditionally classified as sales, but it's all sales. And I see that a lot in government, especially. I talk to a lot of guys that are coming out, and I tell them, if you want to make money, go to sales. If you don't want to make money, go to security. Because generally speaking, tell me if I'm crazy, but they'll be like, oh, well, I want to make a job, and if I make 300 a year, I'm really happy. And I'm like, yeah, that's great coming out of government. But you know who also makes 300? A 22-year-old who just graduated, who's killing it at a SaaS company. Like, you have to change your mentality. But they say, well, I don't do sales. I've never done sales. And I go back and go, you've been selling your whole life. You have to sell your cases. You have to basically sell yourself to somebody that you're going to try to flip to become an informant. You have to sell to get budget. You have to sell to get promoted. You have to sell. You're just not selling a product. You're selling an idea or a person. Do you agree with that? And what makes a good salesperson? Is there a few things that are like tried and true that every good salesperson has?
That's a great question. I actually love that question. I think that, yes, the thing that every great salesperson has is curiosity, a curiosity to problem solve and constantly learn and grow. So I think that the difference between sales and if I think my accounting background or even some of the finance pieces that I did, those are very linear jobs. You start one place, you're going to do everything on a day-to-day basis of building a bigger solution, and then you hand it off to somebody else. It's all linear. Sales, on the other hand, is not linear in any way, shape, or form. And that's where it's different than any other kind of profession. And you kind of hit it on the head. You're constantly selling yourself internally at your company. You're constantly selling yourself when you're trying to negotiate with a spouse or a friend or anything else like that. And the nice piece about sales is you just never know what's going to happen next. And so as long as you are constantly listening, asking questions, getting to know the other person on the other side of the table, you're going to start trying to figure out what is the actual problem? What's the solution going to be? And then your ability to fix that solution alongside that person is what the job ultimately is. And I think that if you love being around people, you love solving people's problems, and you love this 1 + 1 = 3 type of formula, sales is going to be a great profession for you.
And then you've been primarily selling in GovCon, the government, for a while, which has to be
I haven't
recently.
been to GovCon.
Well, recently. Okay,
Recently.
so talk to us about the difference between selling to the government, whether it's just say federal government, and selling to commercial. What are the
Commercial.
big differences?
The biggest difference is timing, so level of patience. And then the other biggest difference is process. Selling into government is really exciting because it's different than any other selling. It's so structured. There's a lot that's out of your control, and it's very heavily based on who you're talking to, how they might be helpful, and then being patient. Every other sales in tech sales is usually pretty quick. It's very rare that you have to wait for a certain time of period at the end of the year and everyone's aiming up on that exact same date. And so that's very different. It's having those conversations, knowing there's going to be a delay, setting expectations of patience internally at your company, and then constantly just finding little nuggets all over the place that you don't know where they're going to go. It takes a much broader view. Now, specifically when you look at a lot of commercial deals, a lot of times they're a lot quicker. Those budgets can come at any point. They can make purchases at any point, and the person pulling the trigger, having power, is going to be a lot easier to identify, and selling to them specifically or the team around them is going to have a lot more levers you can pull on. So I think that that's the biggest difference.
And when it comes to the government side as well, you're battling institutional grist that's been created over a very, very long time. For a new company, what are some of the keys to break in? You got a brand new widget and you know that it's as good or better than anything else on the market, but those guys are entrenched and they've hired formers that are in those organizations. How do you get past that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Let's answer it this way. I think it's about finding collaboration in the space. My company might have my own opinions, but it's reaching out to a person like you and saying, hey, let's collaborate on this and figure out where the actual value is. Is it a dollar amount? Is it a capability amount? And then who really cares? When these entrenched solutions are really in place, I actually think it becomes more of a people business. You should have more conversations with people that might know. Getting more sound bites is going to help them tell the story internally. So I think it becomes heavily people to people business. And then from there, making sure that you are listening, patient, and then trying to be different. You can't just be another widget that's the exact same. You have to be a mission-driven widget that's going to help exactly what people wake up every day to do their job, and then doing it in the most fair way that they didn't think was possible. It's very similar to other sales, but even more so in government.
So going back to being in sales, if you're a 22-year-old just out of college, is there a certain personality type that you've seen that is more successful in sales?
I get asked that question a lot, and I don't think it's a personality type, because I think that every person has the ability to connect with somebody else and offers unique value. I'll tell you, for all the different sales orgs I've been in, I've seen salespeople take every single shape, size, and form. It's really their ability to listen, ask the right questions. The most important part is taking a general interest in the person they're talking to. So I think about the first time you and I met. I was excited to meet you, sitting down, and it wasn't asking you about what can we do to help Gov. It was talking about, hey, tell me about your experiences with these tools. Tell me like what your life is like in DC. Tell me about the things that you care about. And I think that I got really excited because I saw a person that wanted to connect with another person. We were going to go ahead and try to solve a problem. And so when you see an ability for me to earn trust of somebody else, and then for them have trust in you and you'd have trust in them, to where you can really start being honest and moving at an accelerated rate, that's when I get super excited. That's how I sell. But I don't think that that's a certain personality type. I think curiosity comes in all different shapes and forms. And so as long as you're curious, as long as you're patient and you can take a little bit of chaos, I think you're going to be a great salesperson.
So I've talked to some people that are like, oh, I'm introverted, I can never be a salesperson. And I think you can compartmentalize. And the hardest part is picking up the phone. The phone gets awfully heavy sometimes and you get intimidated to call. But once you get past that, and how do you get past that? By doing reps, right? I mean, the old say, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, right? It's the same thing, doing it over and over again. And sometimes even the introverted ones do a better job because they're more thoughtful to some degree, that I have found, because they've really put a lot of time into whatever they're going to say. Not to say they're better, but to say it's different.
It's
And
unique.
so it is, it's different. And I've been on the buying end of both very introverted and very extroverted. And you're right. It comes down to one thing, generally speaking, aside from the product and stuff like that. But if all things are equal, it's, do I want to be with this person for the next 5 years? I'm signing a 5-year contract. I got to talk to this person at least once a month for the next 5 years. And I'm also relying on them to do well for my people. And so it does go back down to that trust. But, sales is such an interesting sort of line of work, because there's no school per se that you could go to, I think, and like come out and go, wow, I'm the Barry Bonds of sales. It's just, like we said, practice, unless I'm missing something. Is that I never went to that school, but
it's so funny you say that, because I think that you could go to certain companies that have been successful. They're sales-driven tech company. Or I'm just doing it from the tech side because that's been my experience, right? But you look at the history that your Oracles of the world that created the Salesforces of the world have created now multiple different sales structures that look very similar to it. They do have a formulation and a playbook that they go by, where your initial reach out, these are kind of some reactions you have. I think there's been this huge desire, what you're talking about, to productize the sales process. How can we automate the whole thing? And I think it's going to be the most difficult piece to automate, because what you're just saying is, I completely agree. I think that it's the person that's connecting with the other person. It's the unstructured pieces that make it so interesting. I think that with sales, let's go a step back on this one. You're saying that some of the introverts are the best because they prepare better for meetings. I will say that I completely agree with that. And I think the weakness of a lot of extroverts is they're not prepared enough and they don't take enough notes. And I think that's something I suffer from at times.
Me too.
But one of the things I love to do is prep for meetings, where you're going to have certain strengths that will make you better or worse inside of a meetings. But as long as you can step in that meeting, go into it just trying to learn, you're going to have a great ability to sell into that person. Let's talk about like what makes AI great and then what makes people great. And I think that this is going to be a really tricky thing when we go through with sales. My mentor told me to read Sapiens, and I love the book. And Sapiens is a dissection of who we are as human beings, as a species, right? So that's the biological person versus, let's call AI the cyborg of what's going to happen. What AI is fantastic at is looking at all of the internet, so many different ways of information, and then summarizing it down and then telling you what's the next thing that you should do. And as human beings, we're actually not very good at it. Think about the times that you're trying to learn to do something new. You can sit and watch 100 different YouTubes, read 15 different articles, and the time it takes you to figure out exactly what's a good idea, kind of hard, right? And that's where AI can really step in and help. Now, the flip side of that is what we're really good at as people. You and I hit this off right away. I knew I could sit down and I'm like, I can trust this guy. And I think you felt the same way. You're like, Zach, you're a good guy. And I don't even know if you know everything, but I can trust you. As people, in order to survive as a species, we're really good at sitting down, having a conversation with other human beings and deciding, can I trust this person or can I not trust this person? And so as long as we as salespeople are able to identify trustworthy people that are going to help us get it done and not, those are going to be certain things that AI won't be able to pick up. And that's why a salesperson is going to be so important. I'll even tell you, like, my wife, I'm the most proud husband in the entire world. She's an unbelievable sales leader over at Databricks. And I've been dissecting what makes her successful over and over again. And she'll be the first to say she's not good at spreadsheets. She's very bad at kind of mental math, but what she's really good at is getting the most out of people and moving quickly. And I actually thought about it all weekend for this podcast. And I was like, what makes Monica so amazing is she doesn't look out and say, okay, these are the three problems I need to solve. I'm going to read up and make the decision myself. What Monica does is make a roster of, here's the 5 people I think might be able to answer this question right away. And then she interviews those 5 people and she can make a split decision on, that's the person to trust. That's the person that's going to get me going. And with that motion, she is able to magnify and multiply her abilities and the results better than anything else I've ever seen. I would say it's my weakness. I try to learn stuff. I need to do a better job of trusting. I think her strength and why she's so successful is trusting people, because she's really good at leaning into the parts that make us special as people. I'm going to be replaced by AI faster than she will.
And by the way, we're going to clip this and then re-release it on Valentine's Day.
Okay,
just
good.
For you, so you can send it. So we'll do a very special.
No, Matt, I'll give you my anniversary
Well played,
and you
sir.
just send it out on my anniversary.
Well played. So when I hear trust, I think of another word, which is authenticity. Yep. And when I see people using AI a lot, especially in their like social media postings, they're so inauthentic. And it's plainly obvious that they did not spend the time. And so you lose your voice. When we think about using specifically like Gen AI, LLMs and stuff like that, like there's no voice and soul to it. And so what I like about people more than anything else is the authenticity of them. People have faults, and sometimes it's really good if you're in a negotiation, whether it's for a sale or whether it's just in life. My old life, when you're trying to get somebody to become an informant or get them to cooperate or whatnot, you have to understand what their vulnerabilities are.
I want to dive into this one because I want you to kind of see this one. When you're interviewing somebody, when you're trying to get to them as an informant and you're doing an investigation, that is the ultimate version of sales.
Yes.
There's nothing more important than trying to get information from somebody in a hostile situation. That is the most difficult sale you could possibly have, correct?
And their freedom's at stake to a degree, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
stakes couldn't be higher. The stakes could absolutely not be higher. Their safety and their freedom is at stake.
Yeah.
So
for them,
what are the tactics that you use and getting to know and think about all those different books that are great negotiation books? But I think that your experience, what makes you special is you've done it so many times. What are some of the techniques that you think are the best sales techniques that you learned from investigating?
Yeah. Well, my dad taught me, he was an agent for 20 years and he taught me just beat the living piss out of people. No, I'm kidding.
He was old school. Yeah. You're gonna have to edit that one out for sure.
No, leave that in. No, I'm kidding. No, that's clearly not. I don't intimidate anybody.
Yeah.
So it is building rapport. It is understanding that you are genuine and authentic to them. I never took my job personally in the sense of I did not get emotionally invested in my cases. I spent a lot of time on them, sometimes hundreds or thousands of hours, but I was not emotionally invested to the point where I would try to ever manipulate or strong arm somebody to doing something that was not in their genuine best interest. So what I would do is I would literally sit down with them. So if it was in a proffer, for example, or it depends, like, did I just arrest them, read them their Miranda, get them signed up? I'll take that example. So there was a guy that we lured in from Romania. I posed as a woman. He was devastated that I was not and that he was going to prison. And he was a really prolific hacker, right? And so he thought he was smarter than everybody else. And now he's humiliated because he has traveled from Romania to Boston and is now in custody. But I needed him for the case to cooperate because there were other people downstream. And it would have made the case a lot easier if he was a cooperator. It's also just a scenario where nobody wants to go to trial. Like, if I can get this guy to confess, better for everybody, even for him, because he's guilty. And the reason why he's guilty is because I know the facts of the case. So what I would do, I would walk him through the scenario, and I would like be very plain with them. His name was Ulian Dolan. And I'd say, Ulian, look, here's all the conversations that we had. Here's your email address. And in your email address, we did a search warrant. And in this search warrant, we were able to find this, this, and this. And then we were able to pivot to this. And I basically walk him through the entire case and say, under no circumstances is anybody going to believe anyone but you did this. And oh, by the way, you're here using that same email address. So that one may be a little different because when you lure somebody, they know that they get.
Wait, no, actually, I think this is completely relevant because what you're talking about, you guys met under untrustworthy circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So think about like you are meeting in the most hostile environments of not only the freedom and the safety piece, but you deceived a person. Yeah. And so there's no way that person should ever trust you. And now you are doing the ultimate sale, which is now that I've broken the trust, there's a bigger thing at stake here. And so I now need to earn your trust that we can work together in order to have a better solution.
Right. And a lot of that, I think, is a resetting of the situation and to say, look, I'm literally the only friend you have. And I am the only person that is going to take care of you. You're going into a federal prison or a holding facility in which no one is going to be looking after you except for me to making sure that you're well taken care of. But along those lines, it's the humanity of it, right? It's, are you hungry? What do you want? You treat them not like an adversary, but you treat them like somebody that has fallen on unfortunate circumstances. And I never took any satisfaction in when somebody was sentenced.
Let's stop on that one too. Like you just nailed another thing. So I think the other big thing about sales, they had fallen on unfortunate circumstances. You could have looked at that situation of you're a bad actor. I'm going to take that at face value, and then I'm just going to beat through it. But what you're telling me is, as a great investigator and as a great interrogator, what you would say is, what are those circumstances that came up where you might not be a bad person or anything else like that? Tell me your full story so I can understand how you got into this spot. And then maybe we can work together, again, building that trust to find the best way out of this for you starting now, because it's going to help both of us.
Yeah.
So I think that's even more impressive.
Well, it's also like, look, I was dealing with white collar fraudsters. I did arrest a guy that violently sexually abused his 3-year-old daughter. And I got a full confession out of him, and he's doing 40 years in prison, and he'll probably die in prison. So it wasn't all. And then a lot of these guys were also like gangbangers from New York City that were coming up into New Hampshire because it was a tax-free state, because they were doing a bunch of different other stuff, but also because they just assumed everybody was kind of gullible, naive. So you did have a mix of that. But generally speaking, every investigator will tell you, start off with like, man, you didn't kill anybody. Like, this is just a paper crime. This is not the end of the world. You're going to survive out of this. You're going to make good choices. You fell on some bad choices. I get it. I was there. And then you find those threads that you pull on. Again, it's the same thing I imagine with you with sales. You find those threads, you find the ones that work, and you just keep playing the hits until you get done. There are a lot of corollaries, and that's where I go back and talk to my friends and say, look, you've been doing sales forever. It's just different. And then try to get them to think about life a little differently in post-retirement. But even the guys coming out of college, like, man, guys and girls, like, you're trying to sell yourself to your peer group, and you're trying to do it for relationships, and you're trying to do it wherever. Think about it from that perspective. And then the world opens up to go, maybe I can do this. My first job in high school, I had sales jobs, but they sucked. First one was I worked at a minor league baseball stadium in Prince William County, Virginia, for single A of the New York Yankees. And this was in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was probably 14 or 15 years old. And I was selling like the programs. And then the general manager came over and said, hey, I got a great job for you. And I said, what's that? They said, you're going to make a ton of money. I said, hey, even better, because I was making like $3 an hour. And it says, you're going to be a mascot. Like, okay, what's the gig? And they said, you're going to be Mr. Trash. I'm like, what? They said, we're going to put you in a tuxedo. And in the third inning, you're going to come out in a Corvette, and the place is going to go nuts because Mr. Trash is here. And you're going to have a tuxedo on, and you're going to have an empty trash bag. And you're going to walk around the stadium, and people are going to give you tips for taking their trash. I was like, that sounds great. I'm in. And they're like, yeah, you're going to be like centerpiece of this entire baseball stadium. Now, this is in the early 90s when all of the New York Yankees that were like, not Jeter, but a lot of the others were there. They're all Andy Pettit, like they're all on this team. The level of shit that I got from those guys as they're coming out. Like, and by the way, the entire year, I got one tip all year long.
You only
No
got
money, one. Because it turns out when you pay $2 to go to a baseball game,
Yeah, you're
tips
not
are not
tipping.
your thing. You're not tipping.
No, you're looking at the value. Yeah.
I learned a lot about dealing with people in a hostile environment.
Yep.
So you have to be quick-witted. You can't get into fights, but you have to you have to stand up for yourself. So that was job number 1, which was just a crazy kind of job. Job 2 was I sold shoes at Walmart.
See, I love these stories.
If you can sell shoes at Walmart, you can sell just about anything, because the shoes in the early 90s in Walmart, not the best. I remember a guy comes in, and this is after doing the Mr. Trash thing where my smart mouth just took off. Somebody comes in, this construction guy, massive human being, and he looks at me and goes, "Hey, you got any cheap effing shoes?" And I went, "You're at Walmart. There's nothing over $10. Do I have any?" Boy, you came to the right spot, my friend. That's all we have is cheap shoes. So anyway.
Wait, actually, this reminds me of a good thing, though. So I think about, like, first of all, you guys like the profile of the person.
Yeah.
When I see, it's so funny. When I'm looking through sales resumes and I see a kid with like Cutco knives or any of those, I'm like, get in front of the line. I don't care whether it's school or anything else like that. In order to do that job, it took so much grit to put yourself out there. They've already beaten through that like embarrassment part, right? I want to see that one every time. Also, the other one I want to see, I'm never as interested in have SaaS sales. They went through a BDR program at Salesforce or anything like that, which are great experiences. Don't get me wrong on those. What I love is like, oh, they are a teacher before. Like, put the teacher to the front of the line. You're like, well, I don't really have sales experience, what you're talking about. I'm like, you dealt with children every day and didn't kill yourself. Like, you must have the patience of a saint and being able to control that many irrational people. Tell me more about that. And I promise you, a teacher could probably be the best tech salesperson on any of these jobs. Actually, I know that is for a fact. One of the women that married my wife and me, her name's Carly. She's unbelievable. She was a teacher. She was a flight attendant. She had all these jobs that had nothing to do with sales. Now she is one of the absolute premier Salesforce sales in the enterprise space. She wrote the first data cloud deal and everything else like that. You know why? Because she's really good at listening to people. She's really good at asking them the right questions. And I guarantee you it's from dealing with kids in a classroom and dealing with people on an airplane as you're trying to get them seated.
How much do you think it is difficult for people, especially new in sales, to hear the word no?
I mean, I think about any guy of our era that ever went up to the girl of their dreams and tried to ask them on a date or even have a conversation and feel it, it hurts a little bit, right? It stings. And I think that's why a lot of these sales programs get you on a situation of reps where you're having to make 20, 40, 100 calls a day. I think at Bear Stearns, they used to have a clicker on the side when we were making calls and just click them off. It's because you get a callousing to it and understanding that no, a lot of times it means that you haven't asked enough questions. And this from a sales standpoint.
Yeah.
Or it's not something to take personally. It shouldn't be taken personally because you're out there to try and solve problems for people. And if they're not ready for it or there's not an opportunity to do it, then that's okay. That's not you. But if you listen and you take it in with not getting really upset about that no right away, you find ways of like why it's a maybe, or if there's other ways you can help them. Or my old goal, and I always used to tell this to my BDR, Reed Runback is the greatest BDR of all time, by the way, when I was at Salesforce. I was like, your job is to get the first date. We just have to get on the phone. My job is not to sell them anything. We're not going to talk about product at all. My job is on that first call to make sure they'll pick up the phone with me again. And that's why we're not going to push product. We're not going to badger them on all these different, what are your 5 business objectives, blah, blah, blah. This is how it maps Salesforce. No, it's like, I'm a person that wants to talk to you about stuff. How can I help you? Oh, you're at a credit union? What are you guys doing for philanthropy? Is there a way Salesforce could be helpful for that? It was a way of saying, if I were to call, would you have an interest in picking up? Matt, I love it. I feel like you always pick up my calls because, we're going to talk about and have fun. That's your job as a salesperson. Yeah. It's not to sell. I'm not selling you anything. It's like, do you enjoy the person on the other end of the phone? And if you've done that, you're going to be a great salesperson.
Yeah, because you're going to buy what they're, without a doubt. Do you think that in many instances, people learn more from the no's than the yes?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, it
you're
seems like
so
it's
much
universal.
This is one thing you'll see in early salespeople. They think the yes is a yes. The yes is not a yes. The yes is like directionally we're okay. It's still just going to another no. You're not going to learn anything until things start falling off the rails and you have to start solving the problems because you're going to get a bigger picture. If things seem like they're going well and smoothly going forward, you just haven't uncovered the problems yet. And so until you find the landmines and why something's going to break, you haven't really done your job yet, which is, again, why it's going to be tough for automations to happen in the space. You'll probably get to these no's really quickly, but you'll get to the formulated no's that are understood. Now, what you're trying to find is that state of the conversation. Is there body gesturing? Is there different tones in the language? Are we going to take this in a different direction that's off of a formulation, or am I actually going to find the important no? So I think that'll be a big play as sales kind of rolls out as well.
Yeah. Pivoting a little bit to the digital asset space, blockchain analytics. So you go to Chainalysis as employee 150. And how was Jonathan's wedding, by the way?
I did not get to go. I was very bummed. I didn't get the invite.
You should beaf with Taylor Swift, right? She
took my seat. Yes. She had a little bit more pull than I did. And so, I'm actually super happy for him though. Like, what a great time of life to just get married. So good for him.
Yeah. So you go there early on and it's a brand new world. I feel like Chainalysis obviously as the first one had a huge advantage because it's supply and demand, and there became almost an immediate demand. And you saw it in the early days, and then as more competition came about. Looking back now, what were some of the lessons learned, I guess, not in the digital asset space, but just in any new market in which you're the first?
This is a great question, Matt. I learned so much from Chainalysis that I actually think it was just such a great experience. I learned that, first of all, when I had that connection with Michael and Jonathan, I felt I could call them in an instant. I was in a great space. The company was in a great spot. I think what I learned is Hypergrowth works for an established industry. So if you're selling Concur's expense management software, you can Hypergrowth. Go and hire a team of 200 people, have them go through the process, and then keep solving the problem that everybody knows they have, and you have a better mousetrap. Then you can hire sales executives from God knows what sales organizations before they can run that same playbook again, and you're going to be successful. What I learned from a Chainalysis, and I was really excited to learn from a lot of those veterans that came in on the hypergrowth stage, if you're going into an innovative, disruptive, completely untapped space, you got to have salespeople that are obsessed with the technology and the product line for two different reasons. Number one, what we talked about, the trust. You got to trust that the person on the other end of the line knows what they're talking about. And when you're hypergrowthing in an area that's still being decided upon on what's going to be the solutions, it goes bad if you have a bunch of people that don't know what they're talking about. Then they're just playing sales motions and scripts instead of actually taking genuine interest and being able to solve problems. So learn that. And then also learned about trying to deal with conflict. I don't think I was the best at it when I was at Chainalysis, to be honest with you. And since anybody I've had conflict at the company, I've reached out to and apologized and said we were pinned against each other. And I think very highly of you. And if I acted inappropriately or I was rough on you, it's because of respect and we were just trying to both win so hard. I think the importance of always rebuilding bridges that may have been shaky are so important. And I've been very encouraged by every person I've reached out to throughout my career that's come back and said, I appreciate this. And I think it goes to try and be not only just a good salesperson, but a good person. Yeah. And good people make great salespeople. And so I think that if you're ever in a situation where you felt conflict or you felt like you and somebody else were pinned against each other, it's never too late to make that phone call and say, hey, I really did think you were good at your job and I appreciate it. Oh, the other number one thing, we went through layoffs there. And I think the thing I learned the most on any layoff situation, it's everybody's duty and responsibility to go help a fellow salesperson, friend, or colleague that lost their job. Everybody should always reach out to their friends they think that got laid off for any reason, and then just be a listening ear for them. It's a real hard time to go through. And being a listening ear and helping a person at a rough time is always so important. And that's not just being a good salesperson, it's just being a good person. But those things, those conversations you'll have in those times will make you a better person and salesperson too.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I know that unfortunately, due to political reasons, some federal agencies like the FBI lost a lot of people, and it was just in a complete, my words, bullshit manner. And we've done everything that we could to try to help as many as we can because for that very reason, because it's a very difficult time.
Matt, think about that one too. Actually, we'll see layoffs with AI, and I think it's going to be everybody's responsibility to do it. I think the other thing is it's embarrassing. I don't care what people say. It is horrifically embarrassing. There's no way around it. And a person in that state is compared to like being scammed, right?
Mm-hmm.
You thought one thing, it didn't work out that way. There's a loss. It's very similar, probably the emotions of it. And so you have to look at that person. They're not a victim, but they are somebody that could use a friend. And so reaching out when they aren't expecting it, never be embarrassed if you get laid off. You should definitely be ready to go. But having somebody that's going to reach out and give you that hand and pull you back up again, if you can be that person, God, what a great opportunity.
At some point in your life, you needed it, or at some point in your life, you will need it. And that's about the authenticity and about being a human, right?
Yeah.
And so having that sympathy or empathy, however you want to describe it. So I always found the blockchain analytics space interesting because the technology is rapidly evolving and more chains are coming and all that other stuff. But one of the things that would always frustrate me about some of the legacy tools, without naming any names, is the difficulty in which they were to operate as a piece of software. And I used to get frustrated to say, wait a second, I'm spending a lot of money. I'm basically buying a Honda Accord for I'm 30 grand for a license for one person, and I got to take a 3-day class to learn how to use it. Is that a product of, it's a really complicated thing? Is it a product of over engineering? Is it a product of, and it's intentional because now it gets more stickiness? I use a ton of SaaS products that are cyber threat intel products. I've seen them all. It's only in the blockchain analytics space that it's like, oh, well, you have to take a 3-day class and you get the certification that you could put on LinkedIn. I'm like, what? Just make your product easier. This is not rocket science. What am I missing? And how did that become what it is?
Well, let's go where it began. And I think about when I started messing around with crypto, how difficult it was. The amount of money I've lost from being an idiot and fat fingering something or sending it the wrong direction or whatever. Like anybody that says digital assets aren't complicated is lying to themselves. It's complicated, it's tricky, and it's hard. And so a tool to investigate and navigate them was inherently tricky, difficult, and hard from the beginning. But I think, to your point, as we've moved on, as time has gone on, we now have technologies to make this easier. We're all trying to obfuscate the difficulties in the background where we don't have to become master coders of non-custodial wallets and the trickiness of using these tools, which are all fun and great. I love doing it. Don't get me wrong. I will absolutely play around with this stuff with the best of them. I'm not very good at it, but you know what I'm saying. To your point, though, the tooling should have moved in the ease era instead of continuing to make itself feel difficult. I think that now we're having a thing where the graphing part of all these tools is going to become commoditized. It's if you want a graph, because the technology has gotten so good, going from wallet to wallet, and especially over bridges and through chains, it should be table stakes. And so doing that and understanding it, that will be important. That knowledge will be important. And seeing how criminals are doing it is going to be a very important part of investigations. However, knowing how to graph will eventually become the modern day knowing how to code. You and I can now do products that give us drag and drop solutions where we can create software or applications at our will by just being able to drag and drop things. And we don't even know the coding that's going on in the background. I see crypto investigations going the exact same way, where the graphing part of it will be the code and the back end of it. But as an investigator, you're going to use technology, use a lot of these tools to think about how you're thinking as an investigator. Where are the funds going? How are those hops going? What are they trying to do? And we will get to the point where we will put natural language and something that's super easy to interact with and interpret inside of those tools. And that's what I'm really excited about. What we're trying to do is move away from the art projects of a graph and get to the natural language that investigators, judges, lawyers, everybody else is going to feel really comfortable using, because it's going to really take off on what we're able to do for protecting people.
And that is one of the things that immediately attracted me to CipherOwl as well, and Ming and Leo as they were building it. As an investigator, as a case agent, I don't want to spend my time hours and hours going through graphs and all of that other stuff. I want to be able to quickly get to where I need to get to. And I love the fact that I could just tell it, provide me all the information I need to know on this. We're becoming more used to that when it comes to Gen AI and whatnot, because the goal is to arrest somebody or seize their assets. The goal isn't to figure out the puzzle of where the money went. Like, help me do that. That's why I'm paying you so much freaking money, is so you can do that. Don't make it difficult for me. And then the question is, somebody that is brilliant, made $1 billion in software, said, look, if after 2 hours on my platform, if you don't know what you're doing, then it's my fault, not yours. Like, I need to go back and fix it. And that's one of the things I love about CipherOwl is when when you have somebody that doesn't do it every single day, but still needs it, you're there for them. And
Totally.
I don't, and it's not intimidating. And I can't tell you in some of those others, I got lost so quickly. And I was an early adopter in digital assets. I was buying Bitcoin at bodegas in, 2012, 2013. And I would get lost. Whereas with CipherOwl, I don't get lost. And the goal isn't to be the most complicated. The goal is to get the answer as quickly as possible and in an auditable way, so I can say the magic box told me, Judge.
Blood trails are going to be like so key to all this.
Yes.
Not just like what is the label, who is this, as this is what we
Yes.
think. We love the idea of like we're going to show you exactly how we derive those labels, and that's going to
Yes.
be a unique thing. And that was something we came across because we had the advantages of seeing things that happened in the past and rebuilding from
Yeah.
a structure and a basis that was let's have audit trails from the core. Now, Matt, I think that you said something. I'm going to tie it back to what we were talking about earlier. And we think about what we're good at as people and what machines are really good at. Machines are really good at looking at a huge map of information. So if we think of the size of these blockchains and the transaction maps and everything else like that, does it make sense for us as people and what we're good at to try and interpret a massive amount of data and get the actual pieces? Or does it then make sense for us to have a machine do that, all that preparation, and then get back to the part that we're really good at, which is let's look at the story, let's talk to other people and figure out what makes sense, and then interpret all those fringe areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to let the machine do that preparation part. We're going to let the machine do the graphing. We're going to let the machine do that summary of it. And of course, we're going to always check it. But then that means it opens up more time for you guys to go and do your investigations and say, with this going, I just saved how many hours? I'm going to actually refocus that capacity to doing those interviews, to doing those investigations. So I think that's what I get most excited about is we're letting people be really good at being people, and we're letting machines be really good at being machines for a much better result.
It's an enablement. It is not the tool. There's no one tool to rule them all. It should be a small piece, just like when you were a forensic accountant and you're tracing money through various traditional financial institutions. The end goal is not that. You just have to get through that to get to the end goal, which is identifying whatever the fraud scheme is and then taking whatever necessary legal action, whether it's a search warrant, subpoena, seizure, arrest, whatever that is. But sometimes the other thing that happens is people only do what we'll call on-chain investigations. They will only investigate based on what the freaking tool tells them. Yeah. And at the end of the day, these are crimes in which people committed. And I used to always say, you have to get out on the street and you have to talk to people. You could spend 20 hours trying to figure out the money flows, blah, blah, blah. But you could also do is go actually talk to people and see if you can get them to tell you what they did and the reasons why. And so I fear as more and more cases are becoming involved somehow with digital assets because bad actors are using them to move money, that people will still continue to just primarily do what on-chain investigations and not do the actual part of the job that will get you a conviction, which generally would be, let's go talk to people. Let's use this to enable our investigations, not our investigations. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I think this is where I struggle as a human being using AI, right? I joke commonly that friends will write you emails or text messages. And we're talking about the authentic nature that some of these posts are, where it's obviously AI has generated it. What I really get scared of is, are we numbing out the things that make us great people? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So are we starting to use these tools when I love writing you emails? I love writing you text messages, and AI is never going to capture all the things I'm feeling when I'm going to talk to you, right? So I will write that, and it strengthens me as a person. Mm-hmm. Now, if I need to summarize, before I came on, I looked at a lot of your podcasts and I had AI summarize, and I looked at bullet points and kind of some patterns and things like that. It's really good for that, for me to actually listen to them and try to interpret them. That would be not very efficient. So we have to figure out, where is this good to use AI and where is it not good to use AI? And so for me, the preparation, getting those kind of number stuff, I do think there's an art. And those key investigators are so talented, and they will hopefully be able to look at it and say, yes, I approve this or I don't approve this, and I'll get strength in it. But what we're really going to do is, when it comes to people-to-people interaction, we're going to leverage you more into being less numb in that, because you're not spending time doing the automated part. We are actually going to focus on and really lean into why you're a great person and like why you're great for this job, because you're going to use those things that make you a person, not a machine. So that's what I get really excited about.
Yeah. I hope that the AI told you that Detonation Point, presented by Elastio, is the #1 cybersecurity podcast that also talks Eagles football.
It does. It does.
It does.
Yes,
The
it did.
world's #1. Yes.
Yeah. It talked very poorly about the Giants. And it kind of laughed at the Cowboys. So it was really, it was good to pick up that one. And then it's always fun to see friends and see Aaron on there. And I think, actually, to your point also, I think that when we go back to that negotiation conversation of talking to a victim, you have somebody that you put in jail back onto your podcast. That doesn't happen unless they fully trust you had their best interest in mind once you got to that point. And I think that that's how sales is too. Like, let's talk about it really honestly. I hope, God, fingers crossed, I hope you can call every single one of my customers and like, Zach's a good guy. He did us right. He always tried to figure out what the best thing was. And if it wasn't, he wouldn't sell it to us. It's always going to be my brand. And I think that that's what you do. That's what got me so excited about seeing that interview, was because after the fact, the person's like, yeah, he did what was best for me. That's what sales should do as well.
Yeah. And the best salespeople that I ever worked with were brutally honest about whether or not their product could do X, Y, and Z, because you're going to find out anyway. Is it worth your credibility to sell them on something that is basically shelfware, or is it better to build the credibility? Because I can tell you that my business, 50 Consulting, has grown a lot because people that I worked with at company, salespeople or executives at company X, move on to company Y, and they're like, hey, we're at company X. Can you help us at company Y? And sometimes that's moved on. That's reassuring to me, but also it goes to just having those candid conversations where I've told clients, like, you are a solution without a problem, or basically your sales, it's not going to work. And I'll tell you why. The nice thing is people respect that, because half the time people, especially internally in an organization, are afraid to tell the founder that their baby's ugly, right? Yeah. So let's end with this, dealing with founders. Right? The whole founder thing. You live in Silicon Valley area. What are some of the attributes if you're a new sales guy and you're looking to go to a new outfit and they all say the same thing? We're going to be $1 billion company in 5 years. We have, this disruptive technology that's going to change the world. Right. And you're looking at it and you probably don't know whether it is or not because you don't know enough about it. But what are some of the attributes? I mean, you worked, as I mentioned, with Jonathan early on. Now you're working with Ming and Leo. What are the things that people should be looking for and people should be looking out for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I think Groninger was great also. And I think I learned more of that from when I was doing institutional sales and taking on CEOs to investors and seeing how those question types were going. And it wasn't the answers that I saw in the meeting. It was the behavior outside the meeting when we were in the black cars going from meeting to meeting that taught me the most about what makes a great leader and somebody that I would want to work for. So I think that the number one thing with the founder specifically on these small companies, it's going to be a different person that it's at the big company. So the founder needs to fit the problem they're trying to solve and the company size of which they are currently building. So different people for different times for different spaces. And that's a generalization. But more importantly than if they fit right then, it's a can they fit over time? So one of the things I get really excited about with this management team, Ming and Leo are so smart, curious, and humble that as different things come up or as there's areas that they're not comfortable with, they are so open ear to listen to different ways. And they're going to be extremely nimble and they're going to find very creative, interesting ways of using their entire network to get to a solution. That's something I would always buy in on. What other things are really important in a founder? Excitement, just energy.
Well, what scares you?
What scares me? This isn't something that's going to resonate well for like the history. I get scared of founders that love to be overly visible. That spooks me a little bit because they're going to be distracted. And I think it's going to be very hard for them to stay on task. And it'll be easier for them to maybe gray the line sometimes when they need to be dead honest and honest with themselves. What else spooks me with founders? Actually, this was a good one. Whenever we were in the car, and this doesn't have as much to do with startups, if I was showing around a CEO and we got in the car and they would look at their stock price throughout the day, I would never invest in the stock. Reason being is they're so focused on these nominal little increments and not the larger picture of like swaying the boat in a certain direction. And you can see the different markers in startups also. If people are so fixated on the next step and what it is, and there isn't like a giant North Star that they're moving to in a company, that should be a huge red flag. So it's vision on this big piece and the sequencing into that big piece. That's what I really look for. If someone has a great idea, but is too fixated on like the next step towards that idea and not nimble enough to move, that gives me pause also. And then just honestly, you got to be with good people. I've been really fortunate that most of the founders that I've worked for and even managers, great people. You would want that person in your home, hanging out with your kids. And if that's the case, then you're in a good spot.
And I think that that's a pretty good lesson for all of life. I know that when I used to sit on panel interviews for potential Secret Service agents, me and the guys on the panel would always say, like, the test isn't necessarily your answer to this mundane question. It was always, do I want to spend 12 hours a day with them for the next month in the back of a Suburban in a place far around the world? And if the answer is yes, then like we were hiring guys that had very little experience, but they were the right kind of people. So I think that that's not like a law enforcement thing. I think that that's just a general life thing, because you spend 40 to 80 hours a week with them, especially if it's a founder, like they're responsible for you to a degree, right? Success and failure relies upon that. So do you want to spend that time? And also, I always think it goes back to the leadership qualities that you always look for, right? Do they deflect all praise and accept all blame? Are they building a team environment where everyone from the employee number 2 to employee number 2000 have the same sort of like that's what I want in a person. And a lot of times it is those basic things: is how are they treating the people that they don't need to be nice to? It's one thing to be really nice to the investors. It's another thing to be really nice to the guy that is like brand new out of college and he doesn't have any clout, but you're still being a decent human being to them. To me, that it's really just about, if you find good people, generally good people attract other good people. Just look at like all of the companies and the people that I admire, they're just good people. You mentioned Ming and Leo. When we talk, it's not always just about work. When I was working with Esteban at TRM, just the most genuine human being you'd ever want to meet in your life. And people around you notice things like that. And they'll say like, hey, I want to work with this company because this person is not here to just sell me. I had others that would come in to our operations center and we would say, hey, we need these changes to be made. And they would say, nah, you're wrong. You don't need those things. Yeah. But that's not the way to go about it either, right? Because now if your customer's saying, hey, we want these things, and you're telling your customer that they're wrong, if you hear that, that's pretty much the end of that company, is in my view, whether it's short or long term.
There's so many things I want to unpack on that, because I think that you nailed so many different concepts that are, number one is, when I think of our space specifically, obviously we are competitors in the space, but what are we really trying to do as a chain analysis, TRM, Elliptic, Merkle, CipherOwl? What we're really trying to do, it's us versus the bad guys. So more than anything of like, I obviously want you to choose CipherOwl for your investigation tool. No, I want you to get a tool. I want you to get a tool, and I want you to get more bad guys that aren't going to go hurt people. And if that's happening because I'm educating you, but you decide to go a different direction, that's still a win. And what we're trying to do is bring another option into the marketplace. And you're saying different tools for different situations. I think we have a really good offering for very certain situations. I know we're going to be great at it. But again, this is us versus the bad guys, not us versus each other. And as long as we keep that in mind, and I love that, talking to my friends from chain analysis, seeing TRM at conferences, it just makes me feel good that we're going against the bad guys. We have the same goal. So that's really cool. Now, the next part that you said that I really love, we used to call it like, would you be okay getting stuck in the airport with this person? Because when you're traveling overseas, you're going to get stuck in a very bad airport that has a very subpar bar, and you're throwing back beers. And so it's got to be something interesting to sit with that person. But let's talk about what you're really doing there. Again, this goes back to that same formulation. If I were to ask AI to go through a bunch of resumes and give me the best candidates, odds are going to be different than the ones that you and your crew come up with on who you want to give offers to get stuck in the back of a car with. That's because we are really good at reading people. It's a survival thing. And so it's been ingrained in us throughout, like, as a species. And like, that's a really important thing, where the machine will always tell you statistically what's going to be the best, but they're going to miss those nuances of a people to people relationship. And that's where sales is going to be so tough. Sales is a people business.
It is.
And so as long as sales continues to be a people business, you got to hire the people's people. Yeah. Again, you've heard this a million times. You buy from people you like.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Zack, man, this was awesome. Really enjoyed it. I will only just say about the Eagles, because we have to throw in something.
Yeah, we have to have an Eagles thing. Are they good?
Well, I've been telling you since week 5 that exactly what was going to happen, and it happened. So at least I'm vindicated that that they completely crapped the bed against your Niners.
I think you even nailed the record by the end of the year too.
Yeah,
And you said there was
yeah.
going to be injuries. And I think from week 5 or 6 on, you're like, this offense is getting so boring. They actually have
Hard to
no
watch.
ability to be creative. Yeah.
No, hard to watch. So, hey, next year, like still Super Bowl champs for another week, and
Yeah.
as most of America is thrilled that the Patriots are back in the Super Bowl, I'm sure. You know, they're long time coming. I felt so bad for their fans that they had to go 5 years without
I
another
mean,
Super Bowl.
Boston,
So
they just
I
haven't
mean,
seen this.
yeah,
Well, we also have our Boston office. They're always like, oh, yeah, it's parade week because we have so many parades going through our city right now. Yeah. Hey, so who do you got in the Super Bowl? Who do you got?
I think the Seahawks are going to win. I'll probably take the Patriots on the money line just because it's a good number. But I think
Yeah.
the Seahawks are going to win. They've probably been the best team all year. If they don't win, it's because Darnold threw 3 interceptions and the moment was too big for him. Or the Patriots defense is better than we thought. I mean, they're pretty good, that defense. But Seahawks, man, with this whole nonsense of the 12s, I can't imagine being a fan in that division dealing with that. Like, you literally built an amphitheater to make the loudest, and you're like, oh, we're the loudest. Well, of course you are. You literally built a stadium to be the loudest. Me and my son could be the only ones in there, and we're doing 130 decibels. So
It's a cool stadium. Like, I got like hats off to him. It is an unbelievable stadium. If you put this online, I get in a ton of trouble. I actually dislike Levi Stadium. I think it's one of the most poorly done stadiums in all of sports.
It doesn't look great on TV. What don't you
It
like
doesn't
about it?
operate great either. It just can hold a lot of people. Yeah, and let's go with sports really quick. Why I love sports, why I like talking about sports. This actually comes to the sales thing also. I think sports are a way for people to connect in a very much primal way. It's somebody like putting so much time and energy, going out onto a field, on the equal playing field, and then competing hand to hand to show that many can come out over one. It's like one of the most exciting things that we can all relate to. And so with that, I also thought that sports teams, if you think about the origination of it, it was supposed to be pride in your location, your tribe. Like, this is my local team. And so where I get really frustrated is if it's supposed to feel localized, and you should have so much culture and stuff like that that's built into the stadiums. And that's what drives me nuts about Levi's. And they have great food, don't get me wrong. It's a really very high-tech facility. But I think that when Candlestick was in San Francisco, it felt like San Francisco. When the Raiders had their minor league football team in Oakland, it captured all those different feelings of Oakland. But I think that needs to be put into sports so that people really get the idea. It's supposed to be relatable. It's supposed to give you pride in something locally, and then have you compete on the national stage.
I like that. Yeah, it definitely become very corporate. We saw that. We went to SoFi Stadium, which was a beautiful facility, but again, it felt very corporate. I was there, Eagles Rams last Thanksgiving week, and it was 80% Eagles. So again, one more.
Wait, is Eagles Stadium your favorite stadium to go to?
No, it is not. The game that I've enjoyed the most was actually in Denver.
Which one? The football or baseball?
I've been to both, but football.
Okay.
Because we went to a Broncos-Chiefs game last October, and it was cold. It was snowing, but the fan experience was second to none. From the parachuters that were coming in to every break, there was something, whether it's the guy on the horse or whatever. Like, it was a really well done event. The stadium itself, take it or leave it. I mean, it's in a good spot next to downtown, but that was better than the link as far as like a fan experience. I went to Gillette a million times when the Patriots were in the AFC Championship games, and that was decent. But yeah, the Broncos has been the best so far, and it's a shame that they're building a dome because Denver gets such good. I mean, it's kind of like a myth. My daughter lives out there, and her weather's awesome 300 days a year.
High desert. Yeah. Beautiful.
Anyway,
next time you're out in San Francisco, we'll go see Giants. That is the best like all sporting event.
I do want to do that. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that looks awesome. Well, Zack Martin, really appreciate your time as always, my friend. And thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode of Detonation Point presented by Elastio, and we'll catch you next week. Thank you.